ODOT. So we thought it'd be a good opportunity to bring ODOT in and just introduce them to the group, and they can just show us their ways of doing things, where to find stuff. So with us from ODOT, we have Mark McLeod and John Dursick. Um, I'm going to, with that, Mark, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and go ahead and get started.
All right. Thanks, Chuck. And thank you to all the members of the Great Lake Users Group for allowing us to present today. Just kind of a quick overview of what we're going to cover today. I'm going to talk a little bit about our office and where we're located and our staff members. And then I'm going to go into kind of our support mechanisms that we have available and resources. And then I'm going to turn it over to John Dursick, and he's going to cover kind of our CAD standards and workspace overview. So with that, our office is actually located in our central office, which is in Columbus, Ohio, on the west side. And we are embedded within the Division of Engineering. And our section is actually within the Office of CAD Mapping Services. And we research, develop, implement, and support the engineering CAD standards and technology for the entire Department of Transportation in here in Ohio. Our staff members, I believe some of them are on the meeting today, consist of myself, Mark McLeod. I'm the CAD Services Manager. We have Jack Herstetter, who is our ProjectWise Manager, John Dursick, or as everybody knows him as JD. He's doing our kind of our lead for our open roads development and support. He also does a lot of our custom applications programming as well. We have Matt Iben, who's part of that team as well, open roads development and support. Matt joined us just a little over a year ago. He came from the private sector. We have Brandon Williams as well. He's part of Jack's team for ProjectWise. They also handle our CAD IT support for the state as well. Licensing, computer hardware, configuration, things like that. Kyle Ince has also been assisting with our open roads development support. He's actually helped us do some training. He handles a lot of the survey side of open roads support and development. He's on kind of loan from us with our mapping office. And then recently we had Tess Petros, who joined our group a few months back, and he was hired in to also assist with our open roads development and support. And then we have Eric Thomas, who actually retired from our office quite a few years back. And he's actually joined us as a CAD consultant on kind of an annual basis. So talk a little bit about our CAD resources that we have available. First is our website, and I have the link here. I'll go ahead and I'll post it in here so you guys can have it in the chat. So a lot of the things that are available on our website you'll find is our CAD standards manuals. Now we have two different standards available. We have a Select Series set of standards for all the Bentley Select Series products. And then we also have a Connect workspace available as well. And we have different standards manuals for those. We also have our downloads and our workspaces available on there as well. CAD training guides available for the different workspaces. We have a survey training guide. We have a design guide. We also have our standards revision history. So we keep a running revision update doc for all of the revisions that we make for our Connect standard workspace. We're not really actively doing anything with the Select Series workspace. It's kind of been just kind of sitting there. We only do major updates to that if there's if there's like a major problem. We also have our links to our wiki page, our YouTube channel, and our events page on there. And events being things like webinars, consultant user group meetings, things like that. We also have our software versions list available, and this is essentially all the Bentley products that ODOT is currently using and the versions that we're running. And I do want to mention that we do have a comment on there that this doesn't mean that a consultant needs to be running the versions we are running. It's just out there saying, that it's available for informational purposes only, and this is what ODOT is currently using. We're not really mandating any specific version, requirements. You'll also find our staff contact information on there as well, things like our email address and our phone directory. So if you need to contact us, it's available there. And the most important, I guess, thing that I would consider would be our CAD support request. And to talk a little bit about that, this is kind of our main source for support. This is what we try to have people use if they want to get in contact with our office with any type of problem. And just a little bit of background about this. We actually have about 1,500 support tickets that's been filed through this system since we started. And we typically try to do about a 4-hour turnaround time for our support requests. And it's really kind of our source for all of our support. So when you fill this out, there's some check boxes, there's some information that we request. You can even attach files to it. When you submit it, it's actually comes to our entire group, and then somebody will grab it and assign it to them. And this is how we kind of do our tracking. And I will post that link as well. So this goes straight to our support request form. So a little bit of, I guess, analytics that we have running on our support request form. And this is why we ask the questions during that support request form, because we track this stuff in the background. So as you can see, we have 75% of all support requests in the issue area of Open Roads Designer. That's been kind of our primary focus when it comes to support tickets. And, then we have some of the other stuff, the older standards and workspaces and V8I things. This is actually a breakdown of the categories that we also like to track. Things like drawing production, drainage, utilities, things like that, break down into percentages. And we like to use this for when we file defects with Bentley or enhancements requests. We can kind of focus on where our primary concerns are or our issue areas are when we get support request tickets. So this has been, kind of vital to that, because we have our, monthly meetings with Bentley that we, that we try to bring certain things up. In this case, this helps us track those issues. We also have a wiki page available, and I'll throw the link in chat there.
Just real quick, Mark, while you're doing that, if anybody has questions, they can use the Q&A option, or just throw your question in the chat. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. So our wiki page, we also have available. It's linked from our website, but you can actually go to just the Bentley communities and do a search on Ohio DOT and have have that come up as well in the Bentley communities. We like to post a lot of our training guides here are available as well. We have our ORD webinar series available here. We're actually doing last year we did a monthly webinar series for ORD, and we actually targeted specific items for our users. And those were actually internal only. And what we decided to do is open that up to externals and consultants and things like that. And we're actually starting that next week. Will be our first one that we'll have opened up. And we also have our ProjectWise webinar series available there as well. All of our supplemental videos that we like to create for our trainings specific to, like, say, ORD or ProjectWise. We also have information about our custom applications there, installation solutions, programming information. We try to post pretty much everything to our wiki that's not already either on our web page or linked to our web page. We also have a YouTube channel available. We actually have, I checked this morning, 250 videos available. And typically anytime we have a video or a webinar recording or anything like that, we usually try to post it to our YouTube channel so it's available. And I will link our YouTube channel feed in the chat. So, you know, this is kind of our primary source for any video content that we have available, whether it be, you know, training, webinars, you know, instructional videos, things like that. And I mentioned the webinars. So we do have the ORD webinar series available to externals now. The webinars are presented using Microsoft Teams. The next webinar, as I mentioned, is next week, April 21st. And that webinar will be our 14th webinar, and we're covering culvert modeling and detail sheets. So you can actually go to our wiki page. There's a little clip from our wiki there underneath the training resources and upcoming events. And if you look under webinars, internal and external recordings provided on our wiki afterwards, that's kind of the header for it. You'll see it there listed. There's no registration required. We just have a download for a calendar invite, and all the information is available in that calendar invite. So the link to the meeting and everything. So if you'd like to attend that, by all means, go out there and get to that link. Yes, we actually post all of our webinars that are recorded afterwards. So all of our consultant user group meetings that we record and all of our webinars we also record. And those are all available if you go there through links. And lastly, before I hand it over to JD, I just wanted to mention we actually have a email list, and we use this to send out like our webinar invites, our consultant user group invites, or registration information. And I would highly suggest, if you haven't actually registered on our email list, I just provided the link there. You can go to our listserv and add your email address and sign up that way. And then, you know, that'll allow us to, when we do our mass emailings, for like I said, our webinar invites or our consultant user group meetings or anything like that we have online, we send those out. So with that, thank you. And I will turn it over to JD for the workspace information.
All right. Thanks, Mark. Let me share my screen here. Oh, Mark, you got to stop sharing first. Okay. Real quick, I wanted to touch just a tad bit more on that wiki page that Mark had up before I get started, just to clear up anyone who may not know everything we offer. But this wiki page is, we have training guides, we have supplemental videos for like a crap ton of topics, like all these videos, and then we have videos for custom applications. We have user group meetings, which we offer 3-4 times a year. Those are a couple hours in length usually. And then we have a webinar series for CAD and ProjectWise. So just wanted to kind of note those are the different things that you can find here. The webinars are, and user group meetings are things that we hold open there to the externals as well. All right, so let me start my presentation here. What I really wanted to kind of go over today is really an intro to CAD. So sorry if you guys kind of know how ODOT works, because this is going to be basically that. So how to get started with our stuff. So I kind of got some general topics I want to go over, just getting our standards set up, kind of what's in our standards, getting a project started, creating dgen files and about our sheets. And then that's probably all I'm going to have time to go over because there's a lot of stuff here. So before we dive into our Connect workspace, I just wanted to give some history for those who might not know. Over the past, we've had a total of 3 different CAD standards, really. And the current one that we're going to talk about today is our Connect standards, which we have kind of named OHDOT. Then we had our previous standard was what we called ODOT CAD. And that was for the Select Series like 410, where we added in a lot of the open roads stuff into our workspace here. And then before that, we had what we call the ODOT STD. And that was really for before kind of the open roads technology came in. So this oldest one, we are no longer updating that. I really hope that no one is still using it. If you guys are, you might want to think about stopping because that is severely outdated. ODOT CAD, as Mark mentioned, we really aren't updating or maintaining this anymore. Just kind of keeping it along for the current projects to finish off that are using it. And then all of our focus is on our Connect standards, the OHDOT standards. So that's what I'm going to go over today is this Connect workspace. All right, so how do you get our workspace? So we have 4 options for how you can get our workspace set up. One is for a local installation, meaning everything is local on your computer. You're not putting on a network drive or anything. Another one is a server client installation. So you put your workspace on the server and then all of the people in your office then point to that same server location. So you don't need, a bunch of copies of the standards on each machine. And that kind of separates the installs. I'll go over that in a second. Another option you have is the project-wise client install, which is very similar to the server client, except your standards are inside project-wise. And then the last one is kind of a do-it-yourself. Here's a zip file, and then go kind of configure it yourself. So all these can be downloaded from that webpage Mark mentioned on the downloads page. So the installers are intended to actually make it easier to set up and try to keep you out of the configuration, so you don't have to worry about how that works. But it is a multi-step process to set up here. Basically, the installers will set it up and give you some tools, and then the tools in there are what you use to actually get the workspace. So kind of what I'm talking about here is a multi-step process. So step 1, install one of the installers, local server project-wise. And then that you want to install these on the machine that's going to manage your workspace. So like your CAD manager or something, because it gives you some tools to manage it, especially for the server and the project-wise installs. That's why I kind of put admin after it. And we'll go over more what it installs. I'll make more sense here in a second. But it gives you a sync tool, a notification system. It adds stuff to your start menu, installs our font, adds some register keys. It sets up the custom configuration directory, and then sets up the configuration for our workspace. So after you run that installer, the next step would be to run that sync tool it gives you. And the sync tool is what actually downloads the standards. I'll have a video here in a second kind of going over it. One thing to mention with the sync tool is the version control. Make sure you watch that to be compatible with what version of ORD you guys are using. And third step would be install that client side. If you're doing like a server or project-wise setup, the client side just doesn't do as much as like the server or project-wise side. So it won't give you like a sync tool, won't set up the workspace, but it will give you the notification system, some start menu stuff, the fonts, register keys, and sets up that computer too. So that might have been a little bit confusing. So I figured let's do a walkthrough here, how to kind of get started. So I'm on on our webpage on the downloads. You can see there's kind of the different download options. So what we're going to go through is the local installation in this video, but the server and ProjectWise one are pretty close to that. So I'm going to download it. Oh, and then I'm going to launch it. Apparently I had more to say when I was recording this. So I open it up, and here's what you get when you start up, just kind of a splash screen. So it says welcome to our installer. So hit next. And you'll get an end user license agreement. Just check on, say you agree, hit next. And then we do have Google Analytics embedded into all of our custom applications that we write. It's really just to get usage data. It is 100% completely anonymous. So I really urge everyone to opt in so we can get some better data. I see a lot of people opting out, and it kind of makes me sad because I put a lot of work into getting that Google Analytics set up. So please opt in. I guarantee, I promise you, it's completely anonymous. I have no idea who is using it. I just know it's being used. All right, so then your common install stuff like the install directory, you're typically not going to change that. You're just going to leave that alone. And then the sync metadata is actually a pretty important concept to understand. So I mentioned that sync tool I'm going to show in a second. The sync tool is how we push out any updates. And so the way it can figure out what files that your given copy of the standards need updated is through some metadata files. So this location that you're setting here is where the sync tool is going to save the metadata file. So on a local install, it's fine to keep it, where the default is, but on a server or ProjectWise, you probably want to get that off of the local machine onto the network somewhere. That way, if you had multiple machines that you might want to run the sync tool on, they all have to hit the same metadata location or they start fighting with each other, right? So I think if I remember when I record this video, I do change this location. I got a little bit ahead of myself. Jump forward here. So in here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw my workspace on the C drive for this demo. So I just made a connect folder and config. So I'm going to make a workspaces folder here to house my workspaces. And then I'm going to make the OHGOT workspace folder. And then I'm going to throw a folder in here and call it sync data to house the metadata here for the sync for this workspace here. So I'm gonna choose that as my location for the metadata. And I'll hit next. And now I get some other options. So I added the first option there, the custom configuration directory, kind of as a convenience factor. This has nothing to do with the ODOT workspace. This is the custom configuration for all custom configuration to deal with Migration Connect or ORD. So do not put an ODOT folder or some kind of DOT specific folder here, because this is the main branch for all custom configuration. So if you already have it set, you already have something set up, you want to make sure you keep that what is already set. So if it's not set, this will set it. But yeah, you want to make sure that location doesn't change from what you have, or if you go to set up another workspace, this is the one thing, if you take away anything about configurations, I'm not going to go any deeper than this, but this on your C drive program data, Bentley, the product, on the configuration, there's a configuration setup. In there's that USTN custom configuration. So that is what it will set. So if you already have it set to some location, you want to make sure you set it to the same location, or you might break an existing setup. So I hopefully, if you guys are doing this, then you're the CAD admins setting it up and you understand what I'm saying. But that's the deepest I'm going to go into configuration files themselves today. But I just want to make that clear that that is for all custom configuration. I don't know how many times I could say that. And you don't want to take it over for one given workspace. So my application is setting it. I kind of added it as a convenience as a way to easily set up a machine. So just watch out for that. So I will choose the config location as that's what I'm going to say. Here's my custom configuration that I want to branch off. And then where do you want your actual ODOT Connect workspace to go? So here I'm going to choose that location. So inside workspaces, I made that OHDOT folder. Here is the OHDOT workspace. So I'm telling the installer, here's where my workspace is going. And you don't have to choose inside workspace. It will set up the configuration. If you want to redirect it outside your workspaces folder, it will set up the configuration to redirect it to wherever you want it. That's fine. The work set directory, that is, I need to update this app since we've made some changes to it. That's really the workset CFG location. So anyone who's kind of creating projects or worksets should know that workset CFG has to be, all of them have to be located inside the same directory in order for that drop down to be populated when you launch ORD. So that's really what this is saying, is where do you want all those CFG located? Now your actual folder structure can go there as well. But if not, it can be the same spot or different, which I'll show later. But that's really what that stands for, is the CFG location, the workset CFG location. And then another convenience factor is defining the organization level. I made a checkbox. Again, organization has nothing to do with the ODOT workspace. It is another level to the configuration, and organization level gets loaded no matter what workspace you load. So things like maybe a company's sell libraries for their logos or something, something you always want no matter what workspace you're dealing with, is a good spot to put the organization level. So I added this just as a convenience factor. It'll set up the configuration for you, but if you choose that that default location, which I believe I'm about to show. Yeah, so in here under that custom configuration location that I set inside, so I just set that to connect config. So there's that workspaces folder. The default location right here is organization. So if you're going to use that, you don't need to check on configure organization because that's going to work automatically as a default location. But if for some reason you want to put that somewhere else, then you could check on define organization level and it would go and set up the config for you. But again, convenience factor, you don't have to set it. And then we're going to hit install and it will set up all the configuration for you. So you don't have to worry about diving into any of the config files. So we jump forward here because I know I'm low on time. So after it runs, you're going to see this come up. You want to make sure the last line says program successfully installed. If it doesn't, then something failed and you want to take a look, probably reach out to me and I can see what happened and kind of help you out on why it failed to install. So that is the installer. So that's step one. So let's jump forward a little bit. And here you'll see they added the ODOT config file for you there. That's part of what the install does. It finishes setting up the workspace. So it should give you that workspace config file. And then it should also, if you look at the start menu, you'll see there's this Ohio DOT CAD. Don't worry about the other ones. I added those personally, but you'll see that folder with some quick links in there to some of the things Mark talked about. You'll see the notification system, which I'll talk about here in a second. And then you'll see one of these sync tools. You know, I have all of them there because I'm testing them, but you'll see one that says local if you install local PW, if you see project wise. So those are the sync tools. So that's the second step. Installer did not actually give you any of the dgen libs or anything like that. It just set it up. So the next step is to run the sync tool. So here's the sync tool. So the first time you open it, you're going to see initial download. And this is what's going to actually download all of our workspace. Now, one thing I want to call, you can hit that little expander and it'll show you kind of the locations it's looking at there to where it's going to put it. One thing I really want to make sure everyone understands is the version control. So as you know, dealing with different versions of ORD can be hard to deal with. So what we've done is this sync tool will make sure that our workspace stays compatible with the version you select here. So if you guys are only on ORD 2019 release 1, then you can select that one. And when you hit initial download or when you hit the sync button later on, it will give you all of our latest standards, but anything that we've updated in a newer schema of ORD, it will not give you that update. So it will make sure it stays compatible. That last option, most current, is really for like migration only users who don't care. So I don't recommend using that most current, because that's basically saying you don't care about version control. And so if you just put that in there as another convenience factor for maybe people who don't have ORD and they just don't want to worry about versions. But once you sync to a newer version, it won't let you sync to a previous one. It's just a lot harder to clean up the workspace to go backwards and go forward. So once you sync to a newer version, you won't see those options to go back, but you will always be able to go to the newest one. So I hit initial download, and it's going to go through. Now, depending on your internet connection, this could take some time. I've seen it take a couple minutes to a half hour. It really depends on your internet connection. So I pause it and just fast forward to the end. And so it says finish initial download. And now you see that it kind of changed, or you have a reset standard. So if you want to just purge your standards and reset it, you can do that. There's an so there's what I was showing. Once you sync to a version, you won't see the older ones. There's that. Kind of showing how that works. You can open a log file, so it will literally tell you everything it does. So every file, so initial download, it just says it downloaded the zip file and unzipped it. But anything after that is going to tell you every single file it touched. It's going to tell you what it did. It's going to say, hey, this file was updated, or this file was deleted, this file was added. So that's how the sync tool works. So we don't really like post like a quarterly update. We just push out an update whenever we need to. And then you can run the sync tool and you can get those updates. And that's what the sync button does. So, hey, we got some updates out there. Run the sync tool, it'll update your standards, but it'll keep that version control in check. You can preview the changes by hitting that preview changes button, and then it'll show you everything in those boxes. Here's what's changed. Here's what it's going to do if you actually do hit sync. So that's kind of a main tool that you're going to want to make sure you're using to keep up to date. So now that I ran that, now if I go inside the standards folder, you will see all of the stuff that we push out there will be inside that standards folder. Okay. That's the only folder the sync tool touches, is the standards folder. It does not do anything outside of the standards folder. So that's kind of like our area that we're pushing standards to. So if you're going to make edits, which I'll go over here in a second, you don't want to do it inside standards folder, because anything you change locally when you run a sync tool will get reverted back. That's important to note. That way, if somebody messed up a file on accident, it's real easy to fix. So it's not an attempt to like prevent you from making changes. It's just kind of an easy way to fix problems, is to make sure that standards folder stays with what we release. So now the next question is, well, how do I know that there's an update, right? How do I know? So that's what the notification system partly does here. So I launched it. Let me check my time here. I gotta get moving. So here's kind of the notification system. It's going to tell you like a lot of things, like if we have an upcoming event, you can get notified, and it'll send a little Windows notification too. If there's an update to the standards, then you'll get a little notification saying there's an update to the standards, and you can click it and it'll launch the sync tool for you, and things like that. So after like you update your standards, obviously the notification will go away because you'll be up to date, but things like the announcements, those won't go away until the event's actually passed. So that's our notification system. So let me move forward here. Like that's all. Okay, so another quick look. There's an example of like a Windows notification you might get. So like here's upcoming user group meeting. So things like that. And then there's some example of what it might actually look like if you open the notifications. So keep moving here. So it's just quickly some differences between the different install options. So for the server client, so I went over the local. For the server client one, it's pretty much the same as local, except you have one more additional step of installing the client side and all the user machines. So I did want to show us a couple things. So like when you're on the server, you might want to have more than one machine have the sync tool. right? If you have a couple users that manage your standards. So on the server install, you'll notice there's an option for additional install. So once you've already set it up and you're just kind of installing your admin tools to another machine, you could just check on additional install and that'll remove some of the options. But on those additional installs, you do have to make sure that the sync data metadata location is the same for everyone, or they're going to start fighting. The sync data is going to start fighting with each other. That's one thing you got to make sure you do is just make sure your metadata location is the same when you're dealing with like a server install. And additional install checkbox kind of like removes some of the options in the next page because they're not really needed anymore. And then I have some screenshots of the client side. It really is dumbed down, doesn't have as many options because you're really getting them like the start menu, the notification system, the fonts are getting installed, you know, and then it will also set that custom configuration directory. And I didn't mention it yet, but all these installers can be pushed silently. So you can easily just put in some command line parameters for all the options and then just push it. And you can easily get all your machines configured. So there's that. So for project wise, it gets a little bit more complicated. And I don't have time to go over all. We do have videos on all of it. But project wise does have, I just want to point out this page right here. Zoom in a little bit. So this page right here has two options right here. I want to point that out. So this first option is basically you have nothing set up in your project wise environment. So no managed workspace or anything. This will set it up all for you. If you already have something set up, make sure you do not use that option because it's setting it all up and it will most likely break your current configuration that you have in your managed workspace. The second option is like saying, okay, I have something set up. I want to put this ODOT workspace into what I have set up. So then that you want to choose that second option if you already have something set up. And now when you're putting it into your configuration, there's so many different ways to do project-wise managed workspace. You will have to do one more step after you do it to tie it into however you've chosen to set up your managed workspace. I'm not going to make that assumption and kind of do something that might break it. So that's what, if you already have something set up, make sure you're using that second option. I'm just tying in, and then you can finish either with a setting, the block file to finish it up, however you guys have it. All right. And then the client side is the same. There is a little checkbox for project-wise only. If you're not going to set up outside of project-wise on the client side, it just doesn't even worry about the local configuration at all. So there are videos on all these. So I'm trying to do a quick overview. So some things to know. Custom config location cannot change. I think I said that a couple times now. That is for all configuration, not just one given workspace. They all can be pushed silently. We talk about the sync tool. You can run the sync tool. There's command line parameters to switch it to touch, like maybe you want to manage your workspace in two different spots. You can have that sync tool sync both those locations. If you want to get more advanced with it, I can help you out. Talk about all this, so we'll move on. Some common mistakes. I want to really touch on this right here. Please do not put like an ODOT folder and then workspaces and then the ODOT workspace. Please don't do that. This again goes back to that custom configuration directory. Is not unique or is not specific to a given workspace. I see people in that like V8I mindset, and I see this happen all the time. And really don't do that, because if you go to set up another workspace, then it doesn't make sense. You got what ODOT workspace and then Michigan. Like, don't do that. You do have to run it as admin installers, and if you're trying to do like a network install, make sure. You might run into some drive permissions. Make sure you map those drives as admin. I've seen that happen where they try to choose a location and none of their drive letters are showing up, and that's because they're running as admin and none of their drives are mapped elevated. But all right, zip file. Probably gonna have to gotta move on here. Zip file is really just intended for maybe you got some real unique situation and what I provided doesn't work for you, which is fine. But you're kind of on your own then. You know, you get the zip file, download it, unzip it, do what you want with it. But you won't get the sync tool, you won't get the notification system. You automatically opt into Google Analytics, which is, I would call that a pro there. You have to manually configure it, and you don't get those fonts installed, which really that's installed just for the Office products. There are the steps: you download, unzip, copy this template. That's our template workspace config file. So there's where you can find it after you unzip it, copy it out, and then edit that file to be the right locations in there. All right, so let's take a look at our workspace real fast. First off, we do not use Organization Civil. I don't know if you guys saw that. I think that's a horrible idea, but it works for some people. So we're not using that. All of our stuff is, we're not dividing anything out for ORD stuff. It's all inside standards. We have the exact same workspace inside and outside of ProjectWise. So you might look at some of the config files and you might see it look more complicated. There's most likely just if statements for if you're inside ProjectWise or not to do different things. Makes it easier for us to manage. We don't have to worry about having two copies of it, one for ProjectWise and one for not. So that's all the same for anyone who's wondering. Our standards. So everything we delivered is all contained within that standards folder I mentioned earlier. So OHDOT is like the main workspace, but then everything we kind of deliver is going to be inside the standards folder. So this is the only folder we're going to update, and you should not update it because we're updating it. So look at the workspace. So if we come and look inside of standards, I'm not going to go over everything, just going to point out some things in here. We do have this first folder applications. So we have some standalone applications like the Create Workset tool that we have. If you're wondering how to get to it, that's how you get to it. And we have some things in our utilities that you might want to get to in there as well. You can see dgen lib folder. You can find our dgen libs in there. But kind of give you a general idea what it looks like. If you want to customize the workspace, you can do that. It's fully capable of customizing. The way it works is you add a local folder. So again, we're inside our OHDOT workspace folder. The standards is what we released. Then the local folder is for any kind of local customizations you want. So inside here, if you make a local folder and you make a config file, it's going to automatically include any config files inside the config folder. So local config, you can put whatever you want in here and our workspace will automatically include it. So as you can see, anyone knows configuration, that pretty much lets you do whatever you want with our workspace. We're just saying keep out of the standards folder. All right, and I can help people if they have more questions on that. Things like, maybe something specific to our workspace that you guys might set up. That's where you can put it. Okay, so now moving on to workset. So a project, what does our folder structure look like? We do have a standard folder structure. So if you go inside of our workspace standards, we have workspace templates, and then here's our template folder, the 00000 OHDOT template. So we kind of set it up to be more for the whole project, not just designers. So you can see there's like environmental planning, there's engineering, real estate. So we're going to hone in on the CAD stuff. So really that's the survey and engineering folders. Inside the engineering folder, we kind of divide it up by disciplines. So you have different disciplines, and then inside each of these discipline folders, you have these base maps, engineering data and sheets folder. So all the base maps go inside there, all the sheets go inside there, and then everything else goes inside engineering data, spreadsheets, whatever you have you. And that is true for all of these except for structures. Structures is the only location where we turned into more of a point location. So inside structures, you can create like a bridge folder, wall folders, culvert folders, and then you have the base map engineering sheet. So structures is kind of your one location where it deviates from this folder structure, and you create point location folders. Another thing to call out is we do have a 990 workset standards folder. That's where you're going to find like the ITL file, the seed files for the project, your DTY file. If you're doing custom coordinate systems, things like that, you'll find that all in there. We have a scratch folder as well. And the other thing I want to mention is as you work on projects with primes and subs or or what have you, you want them to work together. We needed a way to kind of divide up, inside this one project where one contractor's data is. And so what we've had the ability to do is to create like additional survey and additional engineering folders. So if you have multiple surveying companies or multiple, engineering consultants on there, you can create a folder for each one. And then it mimics the folder structure here, but then everyone kind of has their own area to put their stuff. So you kind of see 400 engineering, 401 engineering consultant, whatever. So that's something to note you might see as you get into our projects. So creating a work set. We tried to use out of box functionality, but it just really wasn't there. Creating a work set out of the box could not create the work set in a different directory. So a lot of people wanted to move their folder directories into different subdirectories. Like maybe they have their own identifier for their project, and then they're going to put our folder structure inside of that identifier. And you just really couldn't do that out of the box. Also, there's no logic for putting seed files inside your work set. So our seed files have the coordinate systems assigned. So if you're in a north zone or it's like a south zone, we want to put that seed file, dgen file in that project from the start, and then use that to create all files for that project. But there's no logic capability to say, hey, choose this one if it's this for out of the box tools. So we gave it a shot. We really did try, but just couldn't do it. So we developed our own app to create work sets. And that mainly from this first option about creating a different directories was the primary factor in that. I want to also note that you also have the ability to work directly in our project-wise data source if you wanted to. Maybe if it's a heavy collaboration project with us and you do have the ability to do that as well. You can work directly in our project-wise data source. Okay, so creating a project. This is what it looks like. You can find that in the applications folder. It kind of steps you through it. The boxes turn green and you move down as you go through the next sections. I think everyone knows, hopefully by now, to have a work set be valid, you need three things. You need the folder structure, the config file, and the DGNWS. This app will create the folder structure and the config file, so you don't have to worry about the configuration. It will not touch the DGNWS because you can't just copy those around. So the software will just create it. I don't know if you guys knew that or not, but if it's missing, when you open it, the software creates it. So why bother creating it, right? So you won't see that at first, but then as you get into that project, you'll see it automatically pop in there. So real quick, let's go through this quick rundown of creating one. So I should show you where it's at. I guess I'm showing you a little bit of the folder structure here, where those files are. So the folder structure, the config file, and then the DGNWS files I just showed. So you don't have to have your project folder or workset folder at the same location of your workset config file, but your workset config files do have to be all in the same directory for ORD to recognize all of those. So this application will set up the configuration so you can redirect your workset folder structure to wherever you want. So you don't have to worry about the configuration. So let me jump over, move forward here a little bit. Okay, so in here, when you load up, if you're inside ProjectWise, you check that on, and then you can tell it where your workspace is. So initially this will be blank until you tell the application, because again, this is a standalone application. So it doesn't know, it's not like inside ProjectWise or inside ORD where it knows what workspace you're dealing with. So you do have to tell it, but it will remember it after you tell it. So the first time you say, hey, here's where my ODOT workspace is, right? So, and then what it will do is it will actually read through that workspace and make sure it has everything it needs to create a workset. If it doesn't, then it's going to stay red. This section will stay red. And then at the bottom, there's a results. You can go look at it. It'll tell you, hey, you're missing this, or hey, I can't find the template. So if you have everything set up right, then you shouldn't have that. The results section, I might have gone a little crazy with. It literally like tells you everything that happens. So initially when you load it up, you might see some red lines in results as things aren't filled out. So that's the first section. The next section is the mode, create, modify. You guys won't see create for plan only. That's just an internal thing. So you guys won't even see that. Obviously modify, you can go select the current one and modify it. For the template, there's only one template in that dropdown, so that was just future proofing it. So there's not really multiple templates to choose from, so you don't have to worry about that one. And then the next two lines are important here. The first line, let me jump forward here. The first line is where those CFG work set files go. So here's why I said a couple times now, that location has to be the same for all your projects within the ODOT workspace. So that location can't change as you're creating it. So here I'm showing you like wherever you chose it. So when you did that installation, I said, hey, where the work set's at. And I said, really, this means where the work set CFG location is at. You want to make sure those two match up. Now I've been meaning to come back and update all this so that after you run the installer, all this stuff defaults, so you don't have to worry about it, but I haven't gotten around to it yet. So that one is one that you really want to make sure you get right, because as long as you get that right, then the configuration can't get messed up. The next one is where do you want the actual work set to go, which can go wherever you want. And then, so I'll move forward here. I'm running out of time. Then for the next section, what do you want to name that? So if you have the PID number, just type in the PID. If for some reason you want it to be something else, you can check on non-PID and it'll let you type in whatever characters you want. Choose what zone you're in. And then the next section, you have, if you want to create those additional survey or engineering folders that I talked about, here's what you can do in that next section. You can hit the little green plus and it will add another section for you. Jump forward. So here I hit the plus sign. I'm typing in what I want to name that. Do the same thing for engineering. You can add those point locations if you need to. You jump forward. Keep going here. Then hit create work set. So I'm kind of jumping through here. There's a video on this as well, but this hopefully gives you the overview. After you're done, you do want to check the results. Make sure that nothing failed. Go forward. And then one thing I want to note is with this application, you can set up some settings file. So in the local folder, if you create a folder called application settings, and then this file named this, you can default different things so that when your end users select this workspace, it'll read this file and you can have it default, what location the CFGs should go to, what location the work set location should go to. And you can even say if you want to let them change these locations. So I highly recommend you set your CFG location and then set the allow work set CFG selection to false. So don't let them change the CFG location. You do that, and then your users can't create something that is configured incorrectly. So that's real quick on that. There's a video on that. I hate to rush through this. I got some other stuff we got to get through here. So that's real easy. That's real quick how you make a project or a work set. So now next thing I figured I should probably show you guys is creating files. So we do have a standard naming convention for our files, which I have up on the screen here. You can take a look at our manual. It'll kind of say that. So it's like the PID number, a 2-character identifier for what type of a file that is. Like BK is our geometry, and then a 3-digit numbering for you to kind of, if you have more than one of that type, it'll just kind of auto number up. And all those use the seed files. So, within that work set, the 990 standard seed folder, you'll see here's your 4 seed files for that project. Okay. All right. So to help assist with that, we have put together an application to create these. So what it will do is it will name them and put them in the right spot for you. This has kind of been around for a while. You just kind of keep moving it forward. It's got several updates over the years, but here's all those different standard DGen like file naming. So you can use the filters here to switch different categories, what type it is based on map sheets. If you type in the description to help filter it down. And then the default section sets up the defaults. Like if you want to create something in like the 400 engineering folder versus the 401 engineering folder, or what structure folder you want to create a file in if you have multiple structure folders, things like that. So I'm gonna jump forward here. So what happens is the defaults are set for everything that's not checked on. So obviously once you check it on, I don't want to mess up what you have it set there in case you did change it. So once you check it on, the defaults don't apply to that check down row. because I don't want to mess up what you might have done in there. But everything checked off, that's how the defaults work. And then you can also create multiple files. So in here, I can say, hey, I want 3 of these. It'll give you, 2 more lines. And you can say, hey, this is for this engineering folder. This is for another engineering folder. You can change your suffixes around if you want to group different groups together. So there's a video on that too. I just want to give you an overview. There's a results section, just like all the other ones. It'll tell you kind of if anything failed or not. It does write title and comments. So if we turn on your title and comments properties or fields, you can see right here. So like the title, drainage, or so go back to that. And here you can see that title, and then you could put in comments like I put in tests. So that kind of helps you if you don't know what these codes are. So a little helpful there. Moving on. You can change your title and subject in the file if you wanted to under the file properties. Just showing that. All right, I think I got how much time I got? A couple minutes, almost there. One more topic is ODOT sheets. So we have all of our title block data as item type properties now, so we can control them. So you notice there'll be fields here. We don't want you to do more than 1 sheet per model. Just don't put more than 1 sheet in a model, given model. So this is all item types. So let me do this quick video here to kind of show how it works. But you can come in here and place a sheet cell. We have an app to do that. It's ODOT Sheet Cells app, and it's very much mimics placing a cell. So you notice the element selection tool actually changed into the place ODOT sheet tool. And then you have your ODOT sheet selector. So you can click on a given sheet and it'll give you a preview. You double click to make it the active sheet, and then you can place it. You can fill out all of your properties here. So let me make one of these active. Here's all those different title block properties you can fill out before you place it. And then placing it, you can place at 0, 0, use your active rotation, use your view rotation, set your scale. So we'll place it there. And then after you place it, we can take a look. So if we take a look at the element properties, one thing I want to call out, since these are item types, you cannot directly edit the text because that's just a field. If you type over the field, you ruin it and it's no longer linked to the property, right? So if you select the cell, the first item in that cell is always going to be a shape, and that is the outside boundary. And that is where the item type is actually attached to. So if you want to get to those item properties, it's always going to be inside the first shape element, and there's that item type, and you can click on that and change all your properties. So there's all your properties you could change, and then it'll update those fields. So that's kind of a manual way. We also have a sheet manager app. So I just opened that. And again, all of our apps can be opened from our ribbon. Let me go back, get that, show that. Should stop jumping around. So there, I'm showing that. So so right here is our ribbon. So our ODOT workflow, and then in our we have an apps tab. You can get to all these apps this way. So sheet managers right there, create design files right there. So we open that up. It's actually going to search through your whole work set and find all the sheets and read in all the properties and list them here. Now you click on a given one, you can change any of those and update values, and it's really quick to update. You hit update and there it's done. If it is integrated in ProjectWise, so it will check out, update, check in, and it'll tell you all that in the results section. There's also a kind of a bulk edit mode. So right now we're in a single file. You can export to Excel. It exports everything in Excel, and then you can make all your changes you want to Excel. You can filter formulas, do whatever you want. It really is hard to mess up as long as you don't mess up the column header name. Then it'll be able to import it. So if you need to insert a column or something, you can do that. You need to do formulas, you can do that. The NAs mean that it's not, that field doesn't exist on that given sheet is what that means. And then you can save it and you can import it back in and it will update all those files. So really easy to renumber, things like that. So I'm going to jump forward, and then I do want to note we also have a cross-reference tool here. So it works with the item types. So you can place like a text and say select that text, set up a new link, go choose the file you want to link to. It's like, hey, I want this number from this page from this sheet. It'll find the sheets, select the sheet you want, and then hit select and go select your properties. So here's all the different properties. Hey, I want to link to page number. Hit OK. And okay, and then it will put in that, and then you can come back in here and do like a bulk update or update active file, and it'll go through and update all your cross references so you won't forget to update them or have if a page number changes. So I wanted to call that one out. That's a pretty nifty little app. All right. I'm out of time, aren't I? Okay, I only had a couple slides left. The last thing I want to talk about was just our designed agency cell. So in our cell border, we have design agencies. This is really for like your logo, whoever's making that sheet. When you use the sheet cells tool to place it, you can have it place it automatically. You just have to define this this variable in your configuration. So good spot to put it would be like the local config folder, and just add whatever name cell. So whatever your logo cell name is, you add it there. Obviously you have to have that cell library added to the configuration, which I talk about in this video. So we'll post this, or we'll give this PowerPoint out there so you can watch the video. All my videos have narration on it if you wanted to go back and watch it, since I ran out of time. So I feel like I'm talking a mile a minute. Hopefully I didn't bore you guys, but really I felt like this was a good thing to show to get someone started, kind of know the basics. We didn't go into too much detail. Hopefully it didn't bore anyone, but anyone have any questions?
The only thing I wanted to add too was, JD obviously went through a lot of information there, but I want to, I guess, point back to the support request form. If you have any questions, regarding anything that he covered today, setting up the workspace, that custom applications we have, you can always just file a ticket and, do kind of a one-on-one style, meeting, or we usually use Teams. So for all of our support requests. So.
Good stuff, guys. Thanks a lot, John. I don't see any questions. Somebody did ask if this recording is going to be available, and should be tonight. I'll post it on our group YouTube page and send it out to the members. But Mark, I just wanted to touch on one thing that you commented on earlier. I just think it's important for both Michigan and Ohio to notice this. Michigan mandated they're switching to release 3 Friday evening. So when we come in Monday morning, April 18th, we'll all be in release 3. It sounds like ODOT is still on release 2, but you're not mandating. They could go to release 3 if they want, but I just want people to realize that if you got people in Ohio helping Michigan offices out on Ohio jobs and vice versa, you won't be able to help them out anymore unless you have a dedicated computer with the opposite software loaded. But as of right now, you said that you're not mandating whether Ohio uses R2 or R3, but I think John talked about before the meeting started that you don't really have R3 workspace. You just have an R2 that'll work with the R3 workspace. Is that correct, John?
Yeah. So you can always go forward. You can't go backwards. So we're trying to stay out of the mess of the compatibility issue. So we don't want to go out there and mandate, because if we mandate a certain version and another state mandates a certain version and they're different and you're doing work for both states, that makes it pretty hard to work, right? So we are trying to help the situation by not mandating and saying, look, you can use the version that you want. You just got to get on the same page with everyone working on those projects. If you got subs and primes, you want to get on the same page what version you're using. You can use our standards in a newer version. Just because we haven't updated our standard to per se be in that version doesn't mean you can't use it. So R3 can hit R1 standards and it still works. So that's kind of where we're coming from. So what we post on our webpage is what we're currently using, not what you have to use. So as kind of a note, here's what we're currently using. Now, ODOT internal is in the process of updating everyone with our IT office to R3. We're just not there yet. So when we actually get everything pushed out to all of our internal staff, then we'll update our webpage and say, okay, we're on this version. But our office has been on R3 working for a long time now, and everything seems good. I think the only thing, a couple things that we saw was we have an app called the Monument Report app that broke since they changed some API calls around. Other than that, you know, the dgen libs, feature definitions, all that stuff still works.
Okay, great. Yeah, I just wanted to bring that up. I'm sure people know, but some people might not. So since Michigan is updating to R3 and you're helping ODOT folks in your Ohio offices, you're going to have problems unless you get a dedicated machine or an extra laptop with R2 on it. So I just wanted to bring that up.
Yep, you gotta be careful too. If you open one updated, then you just, you know, if you have someone on R2 still,
Correct.
that's just nature of the beast that, you know, Bentley kind of created by doing this stuff. So we're trying to help the situation as best we can, but we know it's complicated. You know, the only real solution is for everyone to move forward, right? Because then you eliminate the problem.
Right.
So,
all right. Well, this is great. I appreciate John and Mark, you guys doing this for us. And Mark gave some good links there if you want to quickly click on the links if you need them and save them to your favorites for the ODOT stuff. And there's contacts in there too. But thanks again, guys, for doing this. I know that Michigan and Ohio work closely with each other, and I just thought this would be a great opportunity to introduce ODOT. And it was a great webinar. So if nobody else has any questions, thanks, Mark and John, and hopefully we'll see you guys in the future.
All right. Thanks,
all right,
Jack. Thanks for
thank you.
having us.
All right, take care.
Mhm,
See you,
you too.
everybody.
Bye-bye.